In the shadow of the Great Pyramid at Giza, a rising sun cast long shadows across the ancient desert. It was 2560 BCE, and Pharaoh Khufu stood contemplating his grand monument under construction. Without smartphones to call his ministers, without PowerPoint to present his vision, without television to broadcast his image to millions, he nevertheless commanded the devotion and labor of thousands. How did rulers like Khufu inspire such collective effort in an age before instant communication and digital connectivity? The question resonates through history, particularly as we examine how ancient leaders, from Egyptian pharaohs to Roman emperors, from Persian kings to Chinese dynasties, built empires, motivated armies, and transformed societies without modern technology. Their methods reveal timeless principles of leadership, communication, and human psychology that remain relevant in our digital age. Consider Cyrus the Great of Persia, 600 to 530 BCE, who constructed the ancient world's first true multinational empire spanning from India to Greece. Remarkably, Cyrus governed through respect rather than fear. When conquering Babylon in 539 BCE, he did not destroy their temples or impose Persian gods. Instead, he freed the captive Jews, respected local traditions, and created the world's first known charter of human rights, the Cyrus Cylinder, declaring religious tolerance throughout his domains. "I did not allow anyone to terrorize the land of Sumer and Akkad," the Cylinder proclaims. "I kept in view the needs of the people and all their sanctuaries to promote their well-being." This revolutionary approach to leadership, respecting diverse cultures within his empire, allowed Cyrus to maintain control over vast territories with minimal military presence. Without telephones or email, Cyrus established an impressive communication system using mounted couriers on the Royal Road, which stretched nearly 1,700 miles from Susa to Sardis. The Greek historian Herodotus marveled at this system, writing, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their designated stages with utmost speed." This ancient postal service, the first of its kind, transmitted the king's commands throughout the empire in just 7 days, a journey that would take a normal traveler 90 days to complete. Meanwhile, in 221 BCE China, Emperor Qin Shi Huang faced a different challenge, unifying 7 warring states into a single nation. Without digital databases or identification systems, Qin standardized written characters, weights, measurements, and even the width of cart axles across his realm. These standardizations created a common identity among previously disparate peoples and facilitated commerce and communication. Most impressively, Qin instituted a revolutionary system of governance, replacing hereditary nobles with appointed officials selected based on merit and accomplishment. This early meritocracy, evaluated through written examinations rather than birthright, would influence Chinese governance for over 2 millennia. The Roman Emperor Augustus, 63 BCE or 14 CE, similarly transformed a republic torn by civil war into a stable empire through administrative innovation. After defeating Mark Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, Augustus faced the challenge of legitimizing his authority without appearing as a dictator, the fate that had befallen his great-uncle Julius Caesar. His solution was masterful psychological manipulation. Augustus rejected ostentatious titles, calling himself first citizen, princeps, rather than emperor. He maintained the Senate and Republican offices while gradually transferring their powers to positions he controlled. He lived in a modest home, wore simple clothing, and walked the streets of Rome without an extensive guard. "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble," Augustus later claimed, a statement supported by his massive building program that employed thousands and transformed the urban landscape with temples, forums, and public works. These visible projects served as constant reminders of his beneficence, creating a sense of prosperity and security that reinforced his leadership. Augustus also established history's first true professional standing army, with standardized training, equipment, and career progression. Soldiers now swore loyalty directly to him rather than to their generals, a crucial reform that helped prevent future civil wars and coup attempts. After service, veterans received land grants in strategic colonies, spreading Roman culture and creating stakeholders in imperial success throughout the provinces. Without television interviews or Twitter feeds, Augustus controlled his image through coins struck with his likeness, statues erected throughout the empire, and a carefully crafted autobiography. The famous residential Gesti Divi Augusti, the deeds of the divine Augustus, inscribed on bronze pillars outside his mausoleum, served as a political testament highlighting his achievements and generosity. In ancient leadership, physical presence carried immense significance. Alexander the Great, 356 to 323 BCE, understood this principle better than most. During his conquest of Persia, Alexander famously led from the front in battle, suffering wounds alongside his men. At the Battle of the Granicus River in 334 BCE, Alexander was nearly killed when his helmet was cleaved by a Persian axe, yet he continued fighting. This willingness to share danger created unshakable loyalty. As one account relates, during the desperate march through the Gedrosian desert in 325 BCE, when water was discovered, soldiers brought a helmeted scoop to Alexander. Seeing his thirsty men, Alexander poured the water into the sand, declaring he would not drink if his army could not. This dramatic gesture, performative yet genuine, renewed his men's determination to follow him through impossible conditions. Alexander also recognized the power of cultural integration. After conquering Persia, he adopted Persian customs and clothing, married a Bactrian princess, and arranged the mass wedding of 10,000 of his Macedonian soldiers to Persian women at Susa in 324 BCE. Though controversial among his Greek companions, these actions helped legitimize his rule over Persian subjects by honoring their traditions. The relationship between ruler and ruled often centered around ritual and ceremony, sophisticated forms of political theater that communicated power without modern media. In ancient Egypt, Pharaoh Ramses II, 1279 to 1213 BCE, constructed massive monuments like Abu Simbel not merely as vanity projects but as tools of statecraft. These colossal statues, carved directly into cliffside and aligned so the rising sun would illuminate the inner sanctuary on specific dates, conveyed divine authority and organizational capacity. The message was clear: a leader who could marshal such resources and technical knowledge must possess superhuman abilities. The structures themselves became perpetual propaganda, reinforcing the pharaoh's legitimacy long after the initial construction. Public rituals served similar purposes. In the Roman triumph, a victorious general would process through the city streets displaying captured enemies and spoils of war. During Trajan's triumph in 107 CE following the Dacian Wars, the parade reportedly lasted 123 days, featuring 10,000 gladiators, 11,000 animals sacrificed, and enough gold to temporarily crash Rome's precious metals market. This spectacular display of success reinforced imperial power more effectively than any press conference or media campaign could today. Ancient rulers also understood the importance of narrative control, creating compelling stories that justified their power. Emperor Constantine did not have social media to announce his conversion to Christianity, but he understood symbolic communication. After his victory at the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE, which he attributed to divine intervention, Constantine displayed the Chi-Rho symbol on his soldiers' shields and issued coins bearing Christian imagery, a powerful visual message that spread throughout the empire. By aligning himself with Christianity, eventually leading to the landmark Edict of Milan in 313 CE, which granted religious tolerance, Constantine reframed the imperial narrative. No longer was the emperor merely a military or political leader, he became God's chosen representative on earth. This new legitimacy helped stabilize his rule during tumultuous times and established a governance model that would influence European kingdoms for centuries. The Athenian statesman Pericles, 495 to 429 BCE, demonstrated how oratorical skill could move an entire democracy. Without microphones or broadcasts, Pericles addressed thousands of citizens in the PNYX assembly, using nothing but his voice and rhetorical skill to guide Athenian policy during the city's golden age. His famous funeral oration of 430 BCE, commemorating the fallen from the first year of the Peloponnesian War, masterfully balanced grief with inspiration, reminding citizens of Athens' unique democratic character. Our constitution is called a democracy because power is in the hands not of a minority but of the whole people. When it is a question of settling private disputes, everyone is equal before the law. We are free and tolerant in our private lives, but in public affairs we keep to the law. This speech, preserved by Thucydides, did more than comfort mourners, it reinforced Athenian identity during crisis and justified continued sacrifice. Through careful word choice and emotional appeal, Pericles achieved what modern leaders attempt through sophisticated media campaigns, rallying citizens behind a shared vision during challenging times. The challenge of governing vast territories without modern communication technology required innovative administrative systems. The Persian Empire under Darius I, 522 to 486 BCE, pioneered the satrapy system, dividing the empire into provinces with appointed governors who enjoyed considerable autonomy while remaining accountable to the central authority. To prevent these satraps from becoming too independent, Darius implemented a sophisticated intelligence network. Royal inspectors known as the eyes and ears of the king traveled throughout the empire, reporting directly to Darius about conditions and potential disloyalty. This ancient counterintelligence operation helped maintain imperial cohesion across 2.9 million square miles, an area larger than the continental United States. Effective ancient leadership also required understanding human psychology. Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, 1479 to 1458 BCE, faced extraordinary challenges as a female pharaoh in a traditionally male role. Rather than directly challenging gender expectations, Hatshepsut gradually transformed her image, first appearing in traditional queen's regalia, then adopting masculine clothing and eventually the ceremonial pharaonic beard. In her temple at Deir el-Bahari, Hatshepsut commissioned reliefs depicting her divine birth as the daughter of the god Amun, thereby establishing legitimacy beyond gender. Through calculated imagery and religious association, she ruled successfully for over 20 years, focusing on ambitious building projects and expanding trade rather than military conquest. Her famous trading expedition to the land of Punt, likely modern Somalia, in 1493 BCE demonstrated both economic vision and public relations savvy. The expedition returned with exotic goods, including frankincense trees that were ceremonially replanted at her mortuary temple, tangible proof of her ability to bring prosperity to Egypt. Without press releases or media coverage, these visible achievements spoke for themselves, reinforcing her leadership credentials. Political marriages represented another crucial leadership tool. Cleopatra VII of Egypt, 69 to 30 BCE, strategically formed alliances with Rome's Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony not merely for personal reasons but as calculated geopolitical moves. Through these relationships, she secured Egypt's independence and her own position when Roman power was ascendant. Cleopatra understood the power of dramatic presentation. Her famous entrance to meet Caesar, supposedly rolled inside a carpet, and her appearance as the goddess Isis when receiving Antony aboard her golden barge demonstrated an intuitive understanding of theatrical leadership. These carefully staged events created memorable impressions that strengthened her diplomatic position. In pre-modern China, Emperor Tang Taizong, 598 to 649 CE, established one of history's most successful administrative systems through careful personnel selection. His famous Mirrors for Princes handbooks on governance emphasized moral leadership and careful attention to ministerial appointments. To govern the country, one must first govern himself, Taizong stated, embodying a Confucian ideal of leadership through virtue rather than force. Without modern personality tests or HR departments, Taizong evaluated officials based on their knowledge of classics, moral character, and practical problem-solving abilities. Most remarkably, Taizong actively encouraged criticism from his advisors, even establishing a court of remonstrance where officials could safely critique imperial policies without fear of reprisal. This early feedback mechanism helped prevent the isolation that often affects powerful leaders and contributed to the Tang dynasty's remarkable prosperity. Military commanders faced particular leadership challenges, needing to coordinate thousands of men without radio communication or digital maps. The Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca demonstrated exceptional leadership during his famous crossing of the Alps in 218 BCE during the Second Punic War. Leading approximately 50,000 troops, including war elephants, through treacherous mountain passes required meticulous planning and extraordinary motivation skills. Hannibal reportedly stood at critical junctures along the route, personally encouraging exhausted soldiers and creating advance parties to mark safe passages. Without GPS or weather forecasts, his successful crossing represents one of history's greatest logistical achievements. More impressively, Hannibal maintained an ethnically diverse army, including Africans, Spaniards, Gauls, and Italians, unified despite different languages, cultural practices, and fighting styles. He accomplished this through a combination of personal charisma, visible courage in battle, and fair distribution of plunder. After his decisive victory at Cannae in 216 BCE, where his outnumbered forces destroyed a Roman army twice their size, Hannibal's reputation alone became a powerful leadership asset. The Roman general Scipio Africanus, who eventually defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, displayed different but equally effective leadership qualities. Rather than ruling through fear, Scipio cultivated genuine affection among his troops. During the siege of New Carthage, modern Cartagena, Spain, in 209 BCE, when soldiers presented him with a beautiful captive woman, Scipio returned her untouched to her fiancé, winning the loyalty of local Spanish tribes through this demonstration of honor. This incident, recorded by both Polybius and Livy, shows how ancient leaders understood that public actions created lasting impressions. Without press releases or social media announcements, such memorable deeds served as powerful communication tools, spreading by word of mouth throughout territories and armies. Religious authority frequently reinforced political leadership in ancient societies. In Maya civilization around 700 CE, King Pakal of Palenque underwent bloodletting rituals in public ceremonies, drawing blood from his tongue or genitals to nourish the gods. These painful public performances demonstrated his willingness to sacrifice personally for his people's well-being, creating powerful bonds between ruler and ruled. Pakal's magnificent tomb, discovered in 1952, reveals sophisticated death rituals that extended his authority beyond the grave. The elaborate sarcophagus lid depicts him falling into the underworld and being reborn as the maize god, imagery that transformed his death from a potential succession crisis into a regenerative spiritual event benefiting the entire community. The ancient world's most effective leaders recognized that legitimacy came from multiple sources. While military conquest established initial authority, lasting power required administrative competence, religious sanction, cultural patronage, and public benefaction. The Roman Emperor Hadrian, 76 to 138 CE, exemplified this comprehensive approach to leadership. After becoming emperor in 117 CE, Hadrian broke with his predecessor Trajan's expansionist policies, stabilizing rather than expanding imperial borders. He famously built Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain, creating a clear boundary that made the empire more defensible with existing resources. Rather than remaining in Rome, Hadrian spent over half his reign traveling throughout the provinces, an ancient equivalent of the modern presidential tour. During these journeys, he inspected military installations, inaugurated public buildings, adjudicated local disputes, and participated in regional religious ceremonies. Without television to broadcast his image, Hadrian made himself physically present to subjects throughout his vast domains. In Athens in 124 CE, Hadrian initiated a massive building program including the completion of the Temple of Olympian Zeus, a project begun centuries earlier. By associating himself with Greek culture and completing abandoned monuments, Hadrian legitimized Roman rule in the culturally proud but politically subordinate Greek cities. Hadrian's villa near Tivoli represents another sophisticated leadership statement. This sprawling complex reproduced famous buildings and landscapes from throughout the empire, Egyptian canals, Greek libraries, Persian gardens, symbolically bringing the entire Roman world under one roof. For visiting dignitaries, the villa demonstrated both the empire's cultural inclusiveness and its technical prowess. What lessons can today's leaders draw from these ancient examples? Several principles emerge. First, effective leadership has always required presence. While modern leaders can appear on screens worldwide, ancient rulers understood the irreplaceable impact of physical proximity. Their ceremonial processions, public games, and provincial tours created memorable impressions that digital communication can rarely match. Second, visible commitment matters. When Alexander refused water his troops could not share, when Maya kings shed their own blood in ritual, they demonstrated a personal investment that inspired followers. Today's leaders might consider what equivalent sacrifices of comfort, convenience, or compensation might similarly demonstrate authentic commitment. Third, infrastructure creates lasting legitimacy. From Roman roads to Persian postal stations, from Egyptian temples to Chinese walls, major public works served multiple functions, providing practical benefits, employing populations, demonstrating organizational capacity, and creating enduring monuments to leadership. The principle remains valid: tangible improvements to community life create goodwill no marketing campaign can match. Fourth, cultural sensitivity enables multinational governance. Cyrus the Great's respect for Babylonian traditions, Alexander's adoption of Persian customs, and the Roman practice of incorporating conquered gods into their pantheon all represent sophisticated approaches to managing diversity. Modern global organizations might find inspiration in these ancient examples of cultural integration without assimilation. Fifth, feedback mechanisms prevent isolation. Tang Taizong's Court of Remonstrance, Augustus' maintenance of the Senate, and the Persian eyes and ears system all recognized a fundamental leadership challenge: powerful people rarely hear uncomfortable truths. Creating institutional channels for genuine feedback remains essential for effective leadership. Sixth, narrative control shapes perception. Whether through Augustus' autobiography, Constantine's Christian symbols, or Hatshepsut's temple reliefs, ancient leaders actively shaped their public image through available media. While technologies change, the imperative to craft and control leadership narratives remains constant. Finally, personal character ultimately determines leadership success. Cyrus' fairness, Alexander's courage, Hatshepsut's persistence, and Hadrian's curiosity influence their leadership more profoundly than any technology or technique. Character flaws, like Qin Shi Huang's paranoia or Mark Antony's self-indulgence, similarly undermined otherwise capable leaders. As we navigate our hyperconnected world, where tweets circulate globally in seconds and leaders can address millions instantaneously, ancient leadership reminds us of fundamentals that technology cannot replace. The essence of leadership, inspiring collective action toward shared goals, remains remarkably consistent across millennia. Perhaps the most important lesson from ancient leadership is patience. Without instant polls or real-time feedback, ancient leaders thought in longer timeframes, planning monuments that would take decades to complete, establishing institutions meant to last centuries, and making decisions with an eye toward historical legacy rather than immediate popularity. In our age of quarterly reports and election cycles, this longer perspective might be the most valuable ancient wisdom of all, reminding us that true leadership transcends technology to connect with timeless human needs for security, meaning, identity, and purpose.